I had been back from 3 weeks of desert field training for exactly 8 minutes when my entire life swerved sideways. 8 minutes. My truck was still coated in sand, my uniform still smelled like smoke and sweat, and my legs hadn't even remembered what walking on pavement felt like yet, when suddenly a black Dodge Charger slid across the road in front of me like I was some kind of fugitive. And standing behind that car grinning like she'd finally cornered her most wanted criminal was the one person I prayed I wouldn't have to deal with that day, Brenda Lockwood. A woman who had no authority, left no title left, but still carried herself like the HOA version of a fallen dictator refusing to accept exile. The fake cop with her Dale Mercer tapped on my window with a plastic badge that probably came free with a kid's Halloween costume, ordering me out of the vehicle. And I swear to you, at that moment, if Brenda had just turned around and looked up the hill, she would have seen it, the military convoy rolling in behind me, the one that would end her entire imaginary empire in less than 3 minutes. I lowered my window halfway and stared at them, exhausted, annoyed and mostly confused about why my homecoming had turned into a suburban checkpoint. Copper Ridge Estates was supposed to be quiet, predictable baked lawns, matching mailboxes, retirees gossiping about tomatoes. But with Brenda around, even perfection got weaponized. I grew up here. I knew every crack in the sidewalk, every cul-de-sac where we played tag as kids. But I also knew the exact moment this neighborhood lost its mind, the day Brenda Lockwood got elected HOA president, and the 5 long years that followed. She created rules out of thin air, printed her own citations, tapped them to people's doors like she was delivering royal decrees. And when she got voted out earlier this year in a landslide so big people were popping champagne at 11 a.m., you'd think she'd move on. But no, Brenda didn't believe in consequences. She believed in resurrection. And apparently today was her comeback tour. Dale puffed his chest out and tried to look official, which only made him look like he'd watched too many cop shows and misunderstood the assignment. "Sir," he barked, "you're being stopped for a community safety inspection." "Step out of the vehicle." For what I asked, not moving an inch. "Dirt on your tires," Brenda said, like she'd discovered contraband. "And an unvetted trailer." I blinked slowly. "That's how dirt works, Brenda." "That is not this neighborhood's problem," she snapped. I could actually feel my soul attempt to leave my body. Dale stepped closer, hand hovering near a radio that wasn't even powered on. "Sir, step out of the vehicle." "No." Both of them froze. And then Brenda hissed, "He's being non-compliant. Detain him, Dale. Detain him." She said it with the confidence of a woman who genuinely believed suburban bylaws outranked federal authority. I leaned back, tilted my head, and checked my rearview mirror, and there it was. My convoy. 4 trucks, 3 transports, and 1 Humvee gliding down the hill in perfect formation, dust trailing behind them like a slow-moving storm. "Sir," Dale said, his voice cracking. "You might want to turn around," I told him. He did, and the color drained from his face so fast it looked medically concerning. Brenda spun around, next hands on her hips, ready to scold whoever dared interrupt her performance. But then she saw the Humvee pull up behind her Charger soldiers, stepping out, scanning the scene like they couldn't believe what they were looking at. Captain Elena Morales climbed out of the lead vehicle, calm, commanding, allergic to nonsense, and approached with the same energy she had in the desert. She took one look at Dale's fake badge, fake vest, fake light bar, and then looked at me. I just shrugged. "Sir," she said to Dale, "identify your law enforcement agency." Dale stammered, NPA. Neighborhood Patrol Authority." "Under whose jurisdiction?" "The HOA's," he said with a little too much pride. And that was the exact moment the real HOA president arrived, Linda Chavez, holding a binder like a sword. "No," she said. "Absolutely not. Brenda was removed from the board 3 months ago. Unanimously." The crowd forming behind us murmured. A neighbor whispered, "Finally." Brenda's jaw twitched. The vote was illegitimate. Linda opened her binder to the page with Brenda's official removal notice and held it up like she was forcing a child to read what they'd signed. Brenda tried to grab it. Linda pulled it back. The crowd gasped. Captain Morales turned to Brenda and Dale. "You are impersonating authority and obstructing a federal service member. Step away from the vehicle." Dale backed up so fast he nearly tripped. Brenda, however, doubled down. "You can't use that video," she snapped when Morales took my dash cam. "That's invasion of privacy. You obstructed a soldier on a public roadway," Morales said. "Your privacy ended when you created an illegal traffic stop." And for a moment, just a moment, I thought I might get to go home, shower, and collapse into bed. But then things got worse. Neighbors lined up with complaints. Photos, fake citations, screenshots of Brenda threatening to inspect yards without notice. And then a military spouse stepped forward with a folder full of letters Brenda had left during her husband's deployment. Letters accusing her of damaging community stability, threatening to contact his commanding officer, even questioning her right to live in Copper Ridge Estates. That lit a fuse inside me. I didn't even realize how tight my hands had clenched until Morales glanced at me with that look, the one that says she knows exactly what I'm feeling. Brenda had gone after my family before. My truck was aggressively styled. My dad's flagpole was too assertive. But going after military families, threatening careers, no, that crossed a line you don't come back from. Morales started gathering statements. Neighbors admitted they'd been afraid to speak before. A Korean war vet stepped forward with a crumpled citation Brenda left while his wife was starting chemo, threatening fines because their bushes weren't trimmed. Brenda mumbled I was enforcing standards. "You terrorized people." The deputy who'd just arrived said, voice like steel, "There's a difference. Sheriff cars pulled in. Real badges, real authority, real consequences." They questioned Brenda and Dale separately, and the more they uncovered, the worse it got. Brenda had built a whole fake Copper Ridge Compliance Bureau, complete with stamps, seals, and threats she had no right to make. Dale admitted she'd told him they had unofficial sheriff tolerance. "That's not a thing," the deputy snapped. And then came the moment, her breaking point. When the deputy said, "Ma'am, based on the evidence, we're forwarding this for criminal charges," Brenda's face collapsed. "Criminal," she whispered. "But I am the HOA." "No," Linda said softly. "You're not." The deputy added, "You're a resident and a suspect." Something inside her cracked. She sagged, eyes, unfocused hands trembling. But then she jerked upright and glared at me with this raw, desperate rage. "You did this," she spat. "You brought that convoy here to humiliate me." "I drove home," I said. "That's all I did." "You'll regret this," she screamed as deputies guided her toward the cruiser. "All of you will." The door shut. The sound echoed like the end of a chapter the entire neighborhood had been waiting 5 years to finish. And for a few seconds, just a few quiet seconds, I thought it was over. But it wasn't. Because what happened next changed everything. 3 days later, the HOA clubhouse was packed wall to wall. People brought binders, photos, videos, everything Brenda had ever used against them. And for the first time in years, the neighborhood felt united, steady, hopeful. Linda stood at the front and said, "We need new leadership. Someone who understands responsibility. Someone who knows what real authority is." And then she pointed at me. I froze. I actually looked over my shoulder to see if she meant someone else. "But no. This is Ethan Walker," she said. "And I'd like to nominate him as special advisor to the HOA board." People applauded. Real applause. Not polite relieved. I walked up to the front, heart pounding in my chest louder than any convoy engine I'd ever heard, and I said the only honest thing I could. What happened wasn't funny. It showed what happens when someone wields imaginary power unchecked. Authority isn't about control, it's about responsibility and protection. If I can help make sure this never happens again, I will. When the vote came, every hand rose, every single one. And when I stepped outside afterward, Brenda was standing under the streetlight, arms crossed, eyes filled with a mixture of resentment and denial. "You think you've won," she whispered. "This wasn't a game," I said. She shook her head and walked away, muttering that we'd regret it, that she'd be back. Maybe she will. Maybe she won't. But as the door closed behind her and the neighborhood breathed freely for the first time in years, I realized something. Authority isn't loud. It isn't controlling. It isn't something you steal or fake or force on people. Authority is something people trust you with. And the moment you forget that, well, that's the moment you lose it. Sometimes the loudest bully isn't defeated by force, but by a community finally finding the courage to speak.